All right, today is one that is a hot topic that I know a lot of people like to ask about. So day 26 is here and we are talking about binding techniques. So I'm going to start by saying that I 100% machine bind my quilts now. I learned how to do that probably in 2017, 2018. And once I learned how to do that from a good friend of mine, Angelina, I have not looked back since. It does take a little bit of wrestling and a lot less of couch sitting, but even though it takes a little bit more time at the sewing machine, I feel like it gets done, it's finished, and it's a lot more durable than when I hand sew it to the back. So originally, when I first learned how to quilt and how to put on binding, I would sew my binding to the front and then pull it over to the back and then pin all the way around and then hand sew, like whip stitch my binding into place. And it was good while it lasted. If it was the way that I knew how to do it, it was great. And then when I learned how to machine bind, that was my game changer. So let me show you my machine bound quilt. So since this one's still hanging around out here, here's the front of the quilt. So you can see that the stitching is right along there. Usually I would get a thread that actually coordinates if I was top stitching, but in this heat of the moment, I did not. And so here's what it looks like on the back. So what I did is I sewed it to the back with those right sides together and my raw edge over here, and then did about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. I lined my foot of my sewing machine right up with the edge of the fabric and the little sandwich and the binding so that it all just gets right in there, and then I'll pull it over to the front and use my stiletto to kind of skewer it in place and make my way through and top stitch it over. And then I also, when I'm top stitching, I'll bump my needle over to the left so then I can have my foot all the way on there, and then it's ready to go and as close to the edge as I can, so it's like right within that 1/8 of an inch top stitching to hold everything down, and then it's nice and intact. And I have washed many quilts with my binding done in both ways, and I find that this just stays nice and sturdy. And I know some people don't like that it adds this little like stitch line around the edge. Of course there's an untrimmed thread where it adds that little stitch line around the edge. I don't mind it. When it's on a minky backed quilt, it even just like kind of sinks in there and it's just a little line. And then the other way that I've had people tell me that they do it, which I haven't found that I love just yet, is they will machine bind it to the front and then bring it over to the back, and then they will, well, I guess you can't see it on here. Pretend like this is it. They will stitch right in this ditch, and what that'll do is they get their binding on the back lined up just perfectly, so then it's this nice little straight edge right along the back of the quilt. And I haven't found that I am perfectly lined up enough to do that. I know a lot of people will use like glue basting or some magic tricks to keep that in place. That's just one more step that I don't find myself wanting to do. Since I barely pin in the first place, I don't pin my binding on. I'll get my snake, I'll pick my starting spot and then just let my binding hang. I used to pin it on in advance, but I would find that it would still end up shifting because I didn't get it perfectly aligned. So that is how I do my binding. And so I think it is now the perfect time to bind my little Trixie pillow. So once I started doing the pillow with the zipper in the back instead of the envelope, I've liked it a lot better. And so with that, I'm gonna go do all those things. So first we're gonna trim it up, put the zipper in, and then we're gonna bind it.